Well, this week, one of the nation's big exporters, the tertiary industry sector, hit the panic button. With enrolments continuing to tumble, dire predictions have been made that earnings in the $17 billion industry could be halved in a matter of years. I spoke to Monash University vice-chancellor Ed Byrne, who runs the nation's biggest international student business. Professor Byrne, education is one of Australia's largest export industries. How much trouble is it in now?
You're quite correct. Tertiary education is a really important business for this country. In terms of overall wealth generation, it's of the order of $16 to $17 billion. Just under half of that directly coming into the sector. Over the years of the Howard government, public funding in real terms for universities was cut back, and the gap was filled by this emerging international education business. Now, for a university like Monash, it brings in about 20% of our income, but it is...
What sort of dollar amount would that be?
350 million, or thereabouts.
And how much of the total industry, the sector, would come from foreign students, do you think?
We would have more international students than most universities, but across the whole sector, 15 to 20% international student numbers is about average, and some universities have considerably more than that. Now, the importance of this financially is in two ways. Firstly, on the international student business, if I could use that term for the university sector, we make a margin. For domestic education, we don't cover our costs. And this is a consequence of the cutback in public funding over the last 10 years or so. The current government has reversed that partially. They've made significant new financial commitments to the university sector, which are very welcome, but they don't compensate for the gap of the previous decade of underfunding. So there wouldn't be a university in Australia that could function in the way we do now without international students in significant numbers. Now, of course, the international students, as well as benefiting the universities, are a massive benefit for Australia as a whole. For Victoria, the whole state of Victoria, our major export is international education. It's a multi-billion-dollar business for this state. Australia is renowned as an exporter of primary products, minerals and the like. The major clever industry that has worked for this country is the education one.
What sort of decline are we seeing this year?
For a university like Monash, which is Australia's largest university, and we have more international students than any other, we have a series of well-developed pipelines that many students enter before they make it to the university. So we've got a very good idea from the health of these pipelines what's coming down the road towards us in terms of entry to university. When I say the drop we're anticipating in 11 in commencing students is between 7 and 10%, that doesn't tell the whole story, because the warning signs we're getting from the pipeline is that there will be much more significant drops in subsequent years unless we take preemptive action.
What sort of drops are you seeing in the pipeline?
In Monash College, which is our main feeder college, a wholly owned subsidiary of the university, we've seen a 30% fall in semester-by-semester enrolments in second semester this year. In the first semester of next year, we're expecting that year-by-year comparison will be a more severe fall.
What, more than 30%?
Yes.
But to what extent does this sort of decline that you're seeing in the pipeline threaten the viability of the whole tertiary education sector?
Well, look, I mean, the viability of the tertiary education sector won't be threatened, because institutions will have to take sensible changes to make sure they live within their budgetary capacity.
It means surely a lot fewer.
Yes, it will mean that
people working for universities.
It will mean that universities will become smaller. The worst projections, so many thousands of staff less in Australian universities. It will mean, and I think this is perhaps a more significant domestic discussion, that we'll have to have very serious discussions with government about increasing domestic funding, whether it be through increased government government support or through allowing the HEX fee to increase. Because I don't see this as a lost cause. You know, I think with sensible action, we can maintain this as a very viable business for Australia and for the region going ahead.
But by which you presumably are talking about visas, because we can't control the Australian dollar, which is part of the reason.
No, Alan. Look, the parity with the US dollar is an absolute killer. I mean, we've always had a slight advantage over the UK and the US in real financial terms. That's now been inverted. We have to look at our fee levels. We have to make sure they're set in a competitive way. You know, we're thinking this through certainly at Monash. Things we're thinking about is, should we start setting fees in yuan, for example, rather than Australian dollars, so we smooth out fluctuations in the dollar and can give local markets some guarantee, what level of bursary we develop, etc. So we're
but that means you have to wear the fluctuations.
We have to wear the fluctuations, you know, and I think as a sector, I believe we're going to have to do that to some extent. Now the second thing is the visa regulation, and this I think is an area where more can be done. The crucial thing are the financial impositions around a temporary student visa. And let me stress, temporary student, nothing to do with permanent migration. If you take 3 universities of high quality, let's say Berkeley in the US, one of the best in the world, any of the Russell Group universities in the UK, Cambridge, or Monash, to come for a student who's been accepted by the university academically to go to the States or the UK, the family has to put of the order of $25,000 on the table for a few weeks. To come to Australia...
As a surety?
As a surety, to cover the first year's fees. To come to Australia, for 6 months, a mainland Chinese family has to put down 3 years' living expenses and 3 years' fees, which, say, for an arts degree at Monash, is of the order of $140,000 Australian. As I say, it has to be there for 6 months, and the probity of that money, where it came from, is investigated. Now, if the exchange rate alters adversely for the Chinese family over that time, they're back to the drawing board because they don't have enough money in the bank to fulfill the visa requirements. Now, this is the single thing. If we could alter the financial terms around the short-term student visa to get some parity with our US and UK competitors, that would be the most important thing the government could do to ensure a soft landing for the sector.
Thanks for joining us, Professor Byrne.
Thank you, Alan.